So 12 days into the rushed evacuations from Kabul and 5 days before it is scheduled for its completion, deadly suicide attacks have in fact rocked the Kabul International Airport, where American President Joe Biden remains undeterred from the U.S. mission to evacuate thousands of Americans and also those Afghan civilians who, remember, had worked for the U.S. and NATO forces. It's not all Afghans who are being evacuated, but only those who had worked for the Americans. Now, in fact, it was the worst day of casualties for the U.S. forces there in almost about a decade. The blast resulted in deaths of more than a dozen American troops and scores of other civilians. And yet Joe Biden has said that he's determined to complete the evacuation of Americans and also of the vulnerable Afghans. While the Pentagon develops a plan to strike back at the ISIS that has claimed responsibility at the attack, Biden has promised that the U.S. evacuations will continue, without giving any indication of a change in next Tuesday's pull-out target. Now, Biden has told the U.S. military that he will grant additional force if needed. Biden also defended his handling of his most serious foreign policy crisis, saying that ultimately it is his responsibility for all that's happening of late. Now, Biden has said that he's also very hopeful that the Taliban will let the evacuations continue, given that the group's interest is actually in the fact that the Americans leave as soon as possible.
We will not be deterred by terrorists. We will not let them stop our mission. We will continue the evacuation. I've also ordered my commanders to develop operational plans to strike ISIS-K assets, leadership, and facilities. We will respond with force and precision at our time, at the place we choose, in a moment of our choosing. Here's what you need to know. These ISIS terrorists will not win. We will rescue the Americans who are there. We will get our Afghan allies out. And our mission will go on. America will not be intimidated. And I have the utmost confidence in our brave service members who continue to execute this mission with courage and honor to save lives and get Americans, our partners, our Afghan allies out of Afghanistan. The reason why there were no attacks on Americans, as you said, from the date until I came into office, was because the commitment was made by President Trump. I will be out by May 1st. In the meantime, you agree not to attack any Americans. That was the deal. That's why no American was attacked. Imagine where we'd be if I had indicated on May the 1st I was not going to renegotiate an evacuation date. We were going to stay there. I'd have only one alternative: pour thousands of more troops back into Afghanistan to fight a war that we had already won relative to why the reason we went in the first place.
Now, the United States, remember, has evacuated at least about 100,000 people from Afghanistan since the 14th of August, and that, of course, was the eve of Taliban's return to power. As many as about 1,000 Americans and many more Afghans are still struggling to get out of Kabul at this point of time, dashing the hopes of several Afghans. The White House has indicated a staggered and a fragmented evacuation. The White House has said that it will not be possible to evacuate every Afghan who wants to get out of the country before the U.S. military withdraws on the 31st of August.
It is not going to be possible for every single Afghan, millions potentially, who want to leave Afghanistan to be evacuated.
And also our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's tracking the developments in terms of what the American strategy will be to deal with the Afghanistan exit, has sent us this report. Take a look.
U.S. President Joe Biden vowed to respond with force to terrorists who killed U.S. service members and a number of Afghans outside Kabul airport on Thursday. However, made clear that the withdrawal of troops would continue. He also said that he had asked the military to come up with a plan to strike back at the terrorists who carried out those attacks. Earlier in the day, the commander of CENTCOM raised concerns when he talked to reporters about the level of intelligence sharing with the Taliban during the evacuation process. Also, the Biden administration's reliance on the Taliban for security outside of Kabul airport is also coming under increased scrutiny after these terrorist attacks. Susan Tehrani from New York for WION World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.